This is Faith Howard Mooney with Inside the TMC Family. I am here today with Greg Schatzke, as he pronounces it, who is a VP at Serbian Mortgage. Greg, thanks for doing this with me.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you are one of our newer lender members and one of our few lender members that we have where I'm at in Minnesota. We've had the pleasure of working together before, so I know a little bit about your business, but if you would just share a little bit about who Serbian Mortgage is with the audience, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Servion Mortgage, we're a CUSO, which means stands for Credit Union Service Organization. And we are the mortgage company behind about 500 credit unions across the United States. We typically don't advertise to the general public, so most people have never heard of us until I say, if you have a mortgage through your credit union, chances are you make your payment to us. And they're like, oh, okay, that's why that sounds familiar. So we've been around for about 30 years, and we operate in 45 states across the country.
Yep. That number has grown a lot, 500. That's pretty
Yes,
impressive.
yes, it has. It took a long time for us to get the first 100, and then it just seems like it's faster and faster that we're hitting these other milestones as well.
Yep, word of mouth. We love that here too.
Correct.
It does happen. Share with us a little bit about yourself then. What was the first job that you ever held?
So the first job that I ever held was I worked in a specialty bakery as the cleanup person. And I'll never forget it because I worked 4 to 8 at night, 4 in the afternoon, 8 at night,
Yep.
cleaning up the bakery. And I would watch these bakers make various Italian breads and donuts and pastries. And uh, and then those had to rise overnight. And when I was done, I could take whatever was left that didn't sell that day.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was I donuts and pastries and various breads. It was actually a really fun job.
I bet you had a lot of friends.
I did. I did. And our neighbors, I would bring stuff home. I was 15 at the time, and our neighbors, my mom would always give stuff to our neighbors, different breads and stuff like that. So yeah, it was fun.
I was gonna say that's one of the coolest first jobs I've heard of. Share with me then, obviously you grow up, you move
Mhm.
out of that first job. How did you get into mortgage?
So my wife, out of college, my wife worked for Summit Mortgage here in Minnesota,
Oh yeah,
and
that's a good one.
then ultimately moved over to Countrywide, and we bought our first house. And my neighbor owned his own mortgage company. And for a couple of years, I was in the advertising world. And for a couple of years, he's like, "Oh, you should come and be a loan officer. You can make so much money." And he finally talked me into it. And I went to work for his company here in Minnesota. I'll never forget the very first day I walked in, he gave me a box of business cards and the White Pages phone book. And he said, start making phone calls. He highlighted a 1003 and said, this is the information we need. And after the first 3 days and about 450 phone calls, I hadn't gotten a single application. And I said, I got to do something different. And he said, well, why don't you try calling on banks and credit unions for their turndowns, the loans that they can't do? So this was in 1999,
Okay.
and you had to have good credit. You had to have, at least 5% to put down. Credit unions and local banks weren't offering government loans.
Right.
And so he told me enough or taught me enough so that I could be dangerous, and went out to my first super, super small community bank. And we worked with a lot of builders. His mortgage company worked with builders. So I had an opportunity to refer some builder business over for construction loans. And the first loan officer that I spoke with, her name was Ann. She reached down and said, I have two files right here that I can't do anything with. One was a purchase, one was a refi. And it was a paper business for us. So not credit challenge, just a lower score and, lower funds to put down. and I got hooked, and right then and there, I'm like, this is it. And over the next handful of years, I developed relationships with about 30 different community banks and credit unions. I actually called on Brad Crandall, who's the CEO of Servion. I called on him in 2002, and so we remember each other from that time. And I just got hooked. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really helping people get into their first home, um, or refinance into a lower rate. I mean, it's just, I get a lot of satisfaction from that. And, I've got a handful of stories that stick out over the years of people that, it's just great to be able to help them out. So yeah, I was hooked.
That is fantastic. I always say it's in your blood. You never
Yeah.
leave, kind of like once you get in. So
Yep.
funny story about Brad Crandall. I finally got in to talk with him after I think calling on him for 20 years
Yeah.
by saying, I'm a Minnesota person. You need to meet with me. And then found out when I met with him the first time, I seriously worked 3 desks down from the woman who became his wife,
Really?
and
Okay.
didn't even know it for
Really?
years. It's like it's such a small world
It
in
really
mortgage,
is.
but also in Minnesota mortgage as
Yeah,
well.
it
So
really is.
very, very funny. The one thing, so obviously you got in it in the day and age where there wasn't a lot of training. There literally, you got given your information and okay, now go do it.
Yep.
What was the one thing that you wish you would have known back then that maybe would have helped you or would help somebody new coming into the industry today?
The one thing that stuck with me, and I felt like I was putting my foot in my mouth a lot, was I would go out and I would say, hey, we have great rates and we have lots of programs and excellent service. And, that's what everybody says. And what I learned, and people still say that today, loan officers, I still hear it. And those aren't things that differentiate you. Those are things you need just to be in this business. And so figuring out, it took me a handful of years before I came across the right teachers who said, you can't sell on rates, program, and service. You know, you need to go out and you need to talk about what are the things that cause interest rates to move? What are the things that um, uh, interest rates are based on, long-term rates? And what does it mean when the Fed makes a move on rates? And that's more applicable today than it's ever been.
Yes, it is.
People will say, I mean, I had somebody yesterday afternoon say, well, I heard the Fed raised interest rates, and so mortgage rates went up, 75 basis points or 0.75%. No, those are two very different things. And so, understanding that everyone sells on rates, program, and service, and those are things you need just to be in this industry. And so it's the other things. What causes the rates to move? What economic events, cause rates to move up or down? How should you advise somebody when to lock or when to float? And so if you want those answers, give me a call.
Yeah, it's about being that trusted advisor for people and
Exactly.
teaching people more than that. And I think you're spot on in saying that that still happens in
Hmm.
the world that we're in today.
Yeah.
And the people that are doing that, it's going to be a harder go for them
It,
at this
it,
point in time to get business. It's the other people that have built relationships and kind of have that trust
yes,
from the people they
exactly.
built relationships with that are going to survive.
Exactly.
If you weren't in mortgage, what would you be doing?
That's a great question. This weekend I was out of town with some friends, and somehow it came up, if you had, handful of $1 million in the bank and could do whatever you want, what would you be doing? And for me, I like to work with my hands. I like working on old cars. I like working on motorcycles, or could be a lawnmower. Um,
Oh,
or just building things. That's what I enjoy doing in my spare time. Just tinkering with things, and or building something. So probably something along those lines. I don't know exactly what though.
I'm sure you would find something, and if not, we could come up with a list of projects
Yes.
to
Well,
involve you.
and
There are
yeah,
lots of
and
people out there that would be willing to have your hands and your mind working on a few of their projects, I'm
r-
sure.
right,
Uh,
and in Minnesota, we're getting ready for snow here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully not, but my list of projects to get done is long, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. That's for sure.
That's fantastic. And you just kind of led me into what my last question for you was. So
Okay.
we're both Minnesota people. We both have been here long. You sound like you probably enjoy the snow a little bit more than I do,
Yeah.
because I'm not a cold weather person, yet here I am. What's your favorite thing about living in Minnesota?
Uh, I've lived here since I was 5 years old, and I really like the change of seasons. Um, it's beautiful here in the fall when the leaves start to change colors. Um, I enjoy winter. I don't like when we have those days that are below zero for weeks at a time.
Me
But
either.
I like to go out and ice fish. And standing on a frozen lake is a weird concept for a lot of people, especially in the southern part of the United States. I enjoy snowmobiling, but I also like when the snow goes away and the trees, start to turn green and then all the things with all the lakes here in Minnesota that Minnesota offers. I've really enjoyed it, and I have some friends that live in Florida, and I'm like, well, where do you go for vacation? And I've been in a warm climate during Christmas, and it's just not the same. I need to have that snow and the change of seasons. So, yeah, I that's primarily what I enjoy about Minnesota.
I could do all I'm a 3-season person, so I'm
Yeah,
everything except for the winter.
yeah,
But yet I've been here since '87, so,
yeah,
I'm kinda here. And it is what it is, but it's true. If people haven't experienced Minnesota, especially in the summer or into the fall,
yeah,
you will not find a more beautiful place in the
yep,
United States. So,
yeah. Yep,
agree
exactly,
completely.
exactly.
Well, we are so excited. Servion joined TMC not too long ago, so we are so excited to have you within our network. I,
Yeah,
of course, have worked with you other places before and was really happy that you were willing to join this TMC family and crew, and appreciate you being part of that with us.
yeah, absolutely. I've loved everything that I have access to and the interaction. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Chicago, but I've already got plans to be in San Diego, and I think this is such a great concept and a great group of people because now is the time where we need to share ideas on how do we get through the market that we're in. And it's great that everybody collaborates. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more and more involved as time goes on.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
We will make sure that you make it to San Diego, which is in March
perfect.
for those of you listening. And thank you so much for doing this with me.
Absolutely, Faith. I appreciate the opportunity.